lost some dollars there. A very careless statement from the Honorable Minister of Information. First thing will be to patronize Nigeria, to sell Nigeria, and there is no statistics to back up the fact that the Senegalese jollof rice is even better than the Nigerian.
I think he just flunked it, like you rightly pointed out. That was damage control. Damage control right there. I don't know if you ever listened to something that P2B said, recalling an experience at one of these highbrow executive schools abroad. Yeah. You know, when he was talking, he argued that Nigeria, they were not discussing the Nigerian challenge in class, and the teacher said, leave Nigeria, but Peter won't agree and continue to, you know, make a point. Yeah. And one day the man brings out $1 and brings out £1 in front and says,
take one.
Peter, which one will you take? And Peter took the $1.
Being the businessman.
So he says that's the Nigerian problem. So how will Nigeria grow?
Yes.
So it goes back to the same problem. Those that lead us demarket Nigeria. They are not patriotic enough. They don't believe in Nigeria. They don't believe even in the, you know, I hear the same Lai Mohammed telling us that in a matter of weeks, we are going to be out of recession. If you look deep into it, he doesn't even believe in what he's saying. Yes. It's just theorizing.
I'll believe that when I see it, when I see it happen.
Anyway, let's look at the papers. Jonathan, the whole truth about 2015 poll yet to be told. That's in this day, of course. That's arising from the book by the former spokesman of Yaradua,
Yaradua, yes.
Of spokesman of Yaradua. Yes. His new book, where a lot of things are coming up.
You know,
some are denying, some are confirming.
For me, good luck, Jonathan. I think Nigeria should just let him be.
You should leave him alone.
Yes, you just leave him alone. And obviously, the man wants some peace and quiet in his life. And I think they should just let him be, bringing him and dragging him to a lot of issues surrounding the 2015 general election. There are too many controversies that are going to come out from that election. And of course, the ruling party is going to feast on it. They've been wanting to blame Jonathan for 1,001 things. So
that's more reason why President Jonathan should give us a memoir. That's why he has to put his experience in black and white. But that is why he should go ahead and establish a presidential library. That is why he should, you know, provide some documentation about the 6 years that he was president of Nigeria.
But definitely he was going to do that. I don't think that that's something that any president will, you know, just turn a blind eye to.
Yeah, but it's taking a while.
It's taking a while.
What's his name? The immediate past president of the U.S. is already working on his. You know, it's something that, because when you don't do that, you give people the room to come with a lot of insinuations and all that.
Well, probably what we should talk about, the Vanguard newspaper, the front page, General Alani Akinade says to President Buhari, quit now if your health cannot cope. And I think that, the same question I asked Femi Adesina when he was on this program, to tell Nigerians, what exactly is
wrong with Mr. President?
What exactly is wrong with Mr. President? I think probably this is the only country in the world where the president will be sick. He himself will confess to Nigerians that I have never been this sick all my life. And then he will not tell anybody what's wrong with him. Nobody can know what's wrong with him. For the 200 million Nigerians that we have, nobody knows exactly what's wrong with him. Whether what's wrong with him can even affect his capacity to lead, to take serious decisions that affect our nation, nobody knows. It's still being kept under wraps.
That's an issue that has to be addressed. It has to be addressed and addressed quickly. Let Nigerians know. And you know, the funny thing is that a lot of Nigerians don't even want the president to go. But what they are thinking is that he should step aside, take his time. If he needs 6 months to get well, fine, and someone, you know, takes over, then just being in charge, and some people are using his name to carry out a lot of...
yeah, but there are constitutional issues with that too, because the Constitution does not provide room for a president to just take a long sick break and go away and come back whenever he wants. So those are the issues.
Anyway, just in the passing week to SSS, the anti-corruption, the anti-criminal, anti-everything is also involved in corruption. You know, where the SSS is having this recruitment scandal, no balance, no federal character, no quota system. You know, and we discovered that almost everybody in the place is from Daura in Katsina State. While places like the southeast, the entire southeast has about 40-something, the entire south, you know, I mean, it's really, really embarrassing.
Akwa Ibom just 5.
And I thought that
51.
by now the DG of SSS should have resigned. I mean, because that's what happens in other climes. Yes. You know, when something like this...
When you are caught, you know, pants down.
Yes, you resign. You resign. But of course, you know he will not. Rather, they are justifying it. And anyway, let's go to the issue of today.
When things happen, you know, in our country, and then, you know, one thing leads to another. You know, an action and a reaction. And you wonder why some people in other parts of the country are saying, look, we are being marginalized. We don't feel that we are part of Nigeria. These are the things that make those people feel that they are not part of Nigeria. These are the things that make them feel, look, we are being marginalized. We are crying out, we are being marginalized. When things like this happen, for instance, Katsina State will have 51 new recruits in a country where the Constitution clearly spells out federal character.
And balance.
And a state like Akwa Ibom has 5. And you now, the people from that area will now be saying, wait a minute, we are the highest oil producing state in Nigeria. In other words, we make the money for Nigeria.
And some other people
so they will take the money and pay some other people, 51 of them, and pay 5 of us. So these are the issues.
Anyway, Mahmoud, I think we don't need to worry about that so much, because a friend of mine just summarized. He said, so why would anybody talk to the DG SSS if in the federal cabinet, if in all the positions in the federal government, there's a tilt towards a particular part of the country? And people are shouting and raving, and nothing happens.
Nothing is happening.
So why would the DSS DG do anything differently when he knows that even those that pay him are caught in the act? So well, today we are looking at 2 issues. One is that just tomorrow, May Day,
yes,
we'll take a little time and know how the Nigerian worker has fared, and then look at what has happened with the money the federal government designated, made available, you know, from
the bailout fund.
From the bailout fund. How has it been used to address the issues of workers in Nigeria?
In the light of several allegations.
Yes, and then we're also going to Akwa Ibom State, where a senator has been asked to take his seat in the Senate by a competent court in Nigeria, and the Senate has continuously refused to open the doors to this.
Why they do that?
To this
I don't understand. Why they do that? I don't understand. Well, we will eventually get to that. Probably it's in protection of somebody.
But I think, let's just go right away and invite the senator-elect. That's what the court has said.
Yeah.
He's senator-elect. BASSEY ETIM is the senator-elect for Akwa Ibom Northeast,
yes,
senatorial district. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Please.
Senator-elect, welcome.
So, Honorable BASSEY ETIM, why are you not in the Senate?
Well, I believe that it's a matter of time, because the Court of Competent Jurisdiction has delivered a judgment since on the 27th of February 2017, and shortly after that, INEC complied with the law by issuing me with certificate of returns, and accordingly, I did a letter forwarded same to the Senate President, asking him to swear me in on a particular date. And incidentally, when I approached the Senate that day, I learned he traveled, And I repeated. So about 5 times I met him, and he said he's yet to be briefed by his legal advisor. I said, okay, how long should I wait? He said, just exercise a little patience. This will be sorted out. Incidentally, in one of the occasions, I happened to meet my former governor, who walked in, knelt down, lifted up his 2 hands, and said, if you swear him in, I will resign. And I was so shocked.
Let's get you
What do you mean your former governor?
Yeah, my former governor, Senator Godswill Akpabio, knelt down before the Senate President,
in my
presence, lifted up his 2 hands and said, if you swear him in, I will resign. And I was so shocked because every bit of problem that emanated from 20...
Hold on. Are you not exaggerating? You are telling me, and if you want Nigerians to believe you, you are saying to Nigerians too that Godswill Akpabio, the former governor of Akwa Ibom, walked into the office of the Senate President, where you were, knelt down before the Senate President,
raised his
2 knees on the ground.
2 knees on the ground,
raised his
with
hands.
2 hands up, and before the Senate President, and there were some other principal officers, and said, if you swear him in, I will resign. And this has to do with justice.
By the way, is it a seat you are supposed to replace?
No, he represents a different senatorial district, which is Akwa Ibom, Northwest.
So what is his interest?
And I represent, my senatorial district is Akwa Ibom Northeast. So it's a matter of somebody trying to talk tough, maybe holding on to the power, because even after that, I read some of his interview in the social media, which he referred to me as one of his citizens. And I became surprised that maybe the former governor is yet to come to term that he is no more the governor of Akwa Ibom State, because you can't describe somebody from another senatorial district as your own citizen. You must know that you are a senator representing a different senatorial district. And any attempt to do that is emasculating or encroaching on the rights of the people of Akwa Ibom Northeast. As I speak now, the people are being shortchanged. They are yearning for effective representation.
Yes, but Senator-elect, let's address you like that because you have the INEC certificate of return.
That's right.
It's on the strength of that we can address you as Senator-elect.
Thank you.
Now, tell me very clearly, in your own estimation, what is the interest of Godswill Akpabio in this matter that you should not be sworn in?
I will not be able to pry into his own estimation, but I know that the man that is illegally occupying the seat now was his commissioner for finance. And this is a man who was vying for governorship. He runs for governorship. He bought form for governorship. And all these things were tendered before the court, where the court looked into the matter and said, indeed, I was the candidate in that election. And for him to continue to occupy the Senate seat shows the level of impunity which some people are yet to come to term by purging themselves of that arrogance of the PDP-led government, which has led Nigeria to where it is today. But thank God, there's a change, and not just a change. There is a procedure to follow the rule of law, which I believe the Senate President in no time will comply with the judgment of the court and swear me in. That's why I do not bother myself, except for my constituents who keeps getting trouble on a daily basis. You receive more than 5,000 email and phone calls asking what's the situation. Even some call from outside the country, the United States of America, threatening that they want to demonstrate in front of the U.S. Congress, UK Parliament, because they don't want this democracy to be castrated. And I told them, look, everyone should exercise patience, that definitely the law will be followed and justice will be done.
Well, it's nice to be patient, but...
we're 2 years gone.
2 years gone, and you have not been sworn in. If say in another month to you're not sworn in, are you still going to fold your hands and wait on the Senate president to wake up from his sleep, or decide to go against the wishes of his friends?
Well, I believe that the law has the window of remedy.
What's the window that you have?
And
what window does the law give you in this matter?
And I also believe that somebody, whether from man, you must look for justice, or from God, you must look for justice. So if we all are the products of justice, or of hunger for justice, then definitely we must do what is just. So I still believe that Senate presidents will not hold on further.
I'm saying, what windows do you have? I mean, what windows does the law provide for you? If he decides not to, what can you do? Or will you just let the 4 years go?
No, that will not be the case. As I speak now, my legal team are discussing on what to do. Because I remember that at a point when some issues arose and people were trying to manipulate the National Assembly system to see how legal opinion could be swayed in their favor, my lawyer, Michael Sekume, wrote to Attorney General of the Federation and said, please look into the law and explain these things to the Senate President and Nigerians, which Attorney General of the Federation carefully evaluated everything and advised the Senate President and said, swear him in. And
yes, look, Senator-elect, I am worried a little bit about that situation because I am aware of the letter from the Attorney General of the Federation. If an Attorney General of the Federation will write to the Senate President and say, look, this is the way the law has explained this, please go ahead and swear in this person. Why would we still have a situation where you are still outside the red chamber? In spite of the attorney, because that's the chief law officer of the country. And if he has written, giving his own opinion, that this is what I think, and please go ahead and do this, and you are still outside the red chamber, does that not really worry you that you may not succeed in this battle?
You know, I'm so confident that I will succeed because I believe that the Senate President has enormous responsibility coupled with his challenges in the Code of Conduct Tribunal. I still believe that he will come out of the situation. Maybe the few undemocratic elements that try to create confusions will fizzle out because it will. What would he lose for swearing me in? He lose nothing. Rather, the Senate will gain more by convincing Nigerians that look, this is an institution governed by law, and that all of us are the products of rule of law, and that's why the Senate should ensure that the needful, the right thing is done.
Okay,
let's go back to
I wanted to ask him. You know, we've had some people from the Senate on this program, and we raised your issue, and they're saying that look, the Constitution makes it possible that this matter will go up to the Supreme Court. You know, and probably because of it, they are letting, since the man who you said is illegally occupying your position has gone to a higher court, that you have to wait until there's a judgment by that higher court. I mean, doesn't it make sense to you?
No, that would be very laughable because Senate has a precedence on this issue. Take Koki East, for instance, where a senator was ordered by Federal High Court to be sworn in as a candidate of the PDP just after the election. Senate comply and swear in the man. The other one went on appeal in the Court of Appeal. And during that December time, he won his case, and he was accordingly sworn in. Because when once INEC issued certificate of returns, the institution of Senate or House of Reps has no business to constitute itself into appellate court. You obey the judgment of the court. And that is why INEC comply by issuing me with record of returns. And you must also understand that there are two scenarios here. There is a post-election matter and there is a pre-election matter. In a post-election matter, the law provides that you have to wait for about 21 days unless the other party doesn't appeal, knowing that that one will stop at the Court of Appeal. But this one will, the Kamot will end at the Supreme Court. And when you get your judgment, you need to start to enjoy the fruits of your judgments. And that's why the Electoral Act was amended in 2011 to make sure that when once a court of competent jurisdiction declares someone as the winner in a pre-election matter, just like the case of Koki East, you have to ensure that the person enjoyed the fruit of his judgment. And in fact, let me also say that the Electoral Act even went as far as specifying that if INEC delay, the National Assembly can forthwith swear in the person. That is to show you that the era of impunity needs to be done with. Because if you don't do that, the other party could drag on the appeal. Take, for instance, the appeal the record was transmitted, an appeal entered about 49 days ago. The man is not serious about the appeal. Instead of pursuing the appeal, he's running around trying to see how he can manipulate the system, which is a way of castrating the democratic process. This, one should understand why it should be that way. But then if you allow that to continue, it will not only result in anarchy, it will result in weakening a democratic process. And don't forget, the only instrument that we have now as a symbol of democracy is legislature. Take out the legislature, we are back to the military dictatorship. So we must jealously guide the system to make sure that as lawmakers, we first obey the law. Even if executive shows some level of impunity, a lawmaker must obey the law. Let me say this. When I was first elected into House of Reps in 2003, that era was the era that we witnessed third term. Few of us stood firm and said there will be no third term because you don't amend a law to suit a particular individual. You do a law for the general good of the people. We stood firm and eventually we conquered. And that was why the third term fell flat. So I have been going through that perspective. And also as a member of a U.S. anti-graft organization, I mean the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, when the country was blacklisted in the Black Book of FATF for the issues of money laundering, I stood firm at the point I led the country into the biggest conference in U.S. to make sure that Nigeria was taken out. And that was done. And I became the first legislator to privately sponsor a bill that strictly criminalized online illegality, or what we may call cyber crimes. So I have this tendency in me, and I would pursue nonviolence to make sure that people are bound to do what they're supposed to do.
Yes, but let us just quickly take a step backwards for people who are seeing you for the first time. How did you end up in court? What went wrong with your senatorial election that you found yourself in court?
It's okay. Thank you so much. You see, after the primaries, and I found out that I was shortchanged as the winner of the primaries, I first approached the FCT High Court. I sued INEC, PDP, and incidentally, PDP sent their lawyers to the court and said, I wasn't, that I participated in election, but I wasn't the winner of the election. And then tendered a kind of a purported result that declared Albert the winner. And the judge asked, if this man participated in the election, where is his name in this result sheet? But the judge remarked that one day, the long arm of the law will catch up on you people. Since INEC is involved, I don't have jurisdiction. He struck out the matter, and I moved to the Federal High Court. And when I got to the Federal High Court, the PDP sent another lawyer who came and said, no, he did not even buy a form. He didn't do anything. No, he cannot be the one. The court said it should be by pleading. I moved to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal said, look, it has to be by pleading. So we went back and did it by pleading.
From down again.
From down again. So I tendered all the evidence to show that I did not only participated in the election, but I won the election, and that the other man contested governorship. He had no business in this particular election. He refused to come and show how he became a senator, because
when you say he contested governorship in Akwa Ibom and he ends up in the Senate, that would confuse a lot of people, as it's confusing me now.
Okay, this is the issue. You bought a form that you are contesting governorship, and you did not only buy the form, you campaigned. You took part as a governorship aspirant. You didn't even campaign, you didn't even do anything about the senatorial race. This is a seat that some other persons busy campaigning. I did all the needful to ensure that my people voted for me. About 3 days or by 1 week or 3 days to the election, you started hearing rumor that, they are going to bring in another person. I mean, well, this is a seat that has been...
No, you had done the primaries. You won the primaries.
Exactly.
And then this man comes from nowhere.
That is it. It comes from nowhere.
They superimpose his name.
That's it.
He didn't participate in the primary process.
No. And his name was then sent to INEC. And at that point, I said, you can't do this kind of illegality over my head.
Was it political horse trading? Because if you say contested for governor or he wanted to become governor, was it some kind of give and take that happened in your party? Well, please don't contest anymore for governorship, but can we compensate you with a seat? It happens in politics. Was that what happened? You can talk to a candidate and say, look, don't worry about this seat anymore, but we won't let you be just like that. Can you take something else?
One thing about party primaries is that it's a process. And the Supreme Court says this process we must be looked into, whether the constitution of the party has been followed, yeah, whether the guidelines also have been followed. Where these are not followed, then definitely that system must be looked into, and justice must be given to whoever that is due. And this is the process where the court, for about 2 years, did the evaluation. And after that, instead of somebody to pursue the appeal and vacate the seat, he went to the Federal High Court here in Abuja to see how he can get injunction to restrain the judgment of another Federal High Court. And he didn't even stop there. They went to police to see how they can execute warrants of arrest on me. And thank God for Nigerian police. They are so civilized. I can tell you this. By the time the police...
The ones in Abuja, at least.
At least from my experience.
Okay.
When they went through the entire document, the judgment of the court and everything, they apologized and said, we are sorry. We can see that you have a very serious case. We don't want to get involved. Oh. And then when that has failed, and the state of execution that he filed in court, the court threw it away and said, we can't stay this judgment. This judgment must be obeyed. When all these things fell, well, he decided to hang into the paraphernalia of the National Assembly to see how he could prolong his stay in the Senate.
Okay, Honorable Tim, finally, I mean, this is the way it is. So what are you saying to your constituents as you wait on the Senate President, according to you, to do the needful?
Well, they must exercise patience. They should not cause trouble, because I can see about three weeks ago, there was a serious protest in Akwa Ibom where they had to shut down a particular axis of the major road. And when I was told, I called them and said, please, I don't need this. People should not protest. Let's continue to do the needful by talking to the power that be and asking them to do justice, because whether you like it or not, you will definitely need justice one day, either from man or from God. But when you deny somebody justice, when your time comes, you'll be denied of justice.
Protest is part of democracy. So if your people want to protest, it's part of democracy. If you feel marginalized, to make a protest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
for
Honorable, for coming. We wish you all the luck, and we hope that the next time you're here, you'll be telling us that it's all over.
Yes, that you will be sitting in the red chambers.
Thank you so much.
We on our own will try to find out from the red chamber what their own position is on this matter and why they are refusing to swear you in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And right away, as you take your leave, we invite the scribe
yes.
of the NLC, a seasoned labor.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
A seasoned labor leader is joining us to talk about tomorrow. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Comrade.
How are you?
Very well.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Comrade, it's been a while, Comrade Son was on this program. I think, yes, it's been a while, maybe over a year.
It's been very busy.
Yeah,
It's been very busy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So tomorrow, as usual, has become traditional, and some people are actually quarreling with that. It's just tradition. So every May Day, there's a public holiday, and then the workers will march, and then the leaders will make a speech, and then everybody goes to sleep. And then another May Day. Looking back, how would you describe the progress that the workers have made in Nigeria? And how would you look at the bigger picture of their plight as we struggle under recession?
Well, to start with, May Day is observed all over the world. So it is a day in some way where workers celebrate themselves. Mm-hmm. And that tradition cannot become boring. It will continue to recur. As a matter of fact, it is a day we mark the sacrifice of people who had to lay down their lives for the cause of workers, to ensure that workers had a regulated framework for engaging in collective bargaining and all that. And so people should not say it's a ritual. It is a ritual. Christmas is celebrated every year. Do we get tired of celebrating Christmas? So it's in the same way. Yeah. Secondly, to say that in between, then everybody goes to sleep. That will not be true. Because since the last May Day, we know activities that have taken place. We know workers' issues that have been put on the burner. We know workers' rallies that have taken on specific national issues. And these will continue to take place. And so, as we mark tomorrow, it is, you could say that May Day is like, where, like the State of the Nation speech, where there is an opportunity to highlight the key issues that have evolved since the last May Day, which touch on workers and which touch on the nation generally. And then it then sets an agenda as to what types of campaigns, what types of issues would be engaged going forward. And it will be the same this year. Clearly, you're right. The workers have been, since the last May Day, actually even before the last May Day, been groaning under the yoke of extreme hardship. One, the wages of workers have generally been, in nominal terms, have been constant all this while. But beyond that, we know what has happened to inflation. Inflation virtually escalated, became double-digit and all that. And therefore, the real wage of workers has fallen and has continued to fall. The value of the naira, when we look at it, clearly shows that what was initially a comparative amount in terms of workers' remuneration, when you do the translation today, really has no meaning anymore. And many workers are actually taking wages that are not living wages. And these are issues that we confront. Of course, the demands have been made to have address these issues. Those demands are still being pushed, and we know that people argue, some argue, that, oh, because of the recession, we are in a recession, so it will be difficult to do this. And we have advanced arguments, and we will again advance arguments tomorrow and continue to do so. Why that is not tenable. Why to depress wages cannot be a way of coming out of recession. As a matter of fact.
Comrade ESON,
yes.
For a government that says it wants to fight corruption, it made the anti-corruption fight, the pillar of its campaign to try to take power in 2015. And they succeeded. For a government that has done that and to continuously seem to ignore the plight of workers and find their wages are where they are, but the situation of the naira and inflation has further made the salary of the Nigerian worker to be, mere pittance. Are they serious about fighting corruption if they know the civil servant whose salary can barely take him home will end up asking for money before he does his job? Or the people you go to meet in the different government offices to do one thing or the other will turn a blind eye to you, except you put something else in an envelope and give to them on their left hand. Then they can quickly, fast track whatever you want to do. How will corruption, be fight in your estimation?
No, clearly you're right. It is true that every human being has a threshold. And if you push even the most rooted in a tradition of honesty, it can be pushed to a level in which they now become tempted.
Every man has a price.
Yes. So if you, take a salary, take, for instance, the existing minimum wage. If somebody is on the minimum wage, that minimum wage, if he commutes, let's say he's in Abuja, let's say he lives in Gwagwalada, and it commutes to Abuja, Federal Secretariat. Yes. Transportation costs alone will consume and wipe out that money. So if he continues to come to work, he must look for something else.
Other means.
And therefore, if we want to truly fight corruption, particularly at the level of administrative processes, then we must pay people living wages that will allow them to act in dignity. Some may not, who may not immediately become corrupt and insist on bribe, become beggars. And when people become beggars, they are no longer carrying the dignity of their office and therefore cannot command respect. So all these must be taken into consideration when these matters are addressed. And these are issues that we believe that government needs to focus on. Because it is not the salary of the worker, if you pay him a living wage, that is going to cripple the economy, because actually that will help to create enough demand that can even stimulate other aspects of economic activity and therefore move the economy out of recession.
Okay, Doctor, you see, I really have two questions, but let me start with the first one. The NLC and the workers are demanding for a review of the minimum wage upwards. And some experts are saying, if you move under this recession, under the battered state of the naira, if you do an increase in salary, it will have no value because the money has no value. That it would have been better if labor got involved in pushing for some fundamental changes in the economic habit, behavior of the country, in fighting corruption, for instance, to bring back the strength of our economy and the value of our naira. So that when you ask for an increase in salaries, it will make, because I'm just saying, if you give somebody 50,000 today, and they have to buy tomatoes, rice, and all that, the entire 50,000 is off. So doesn't it make sense at all? Or is labor not looking in that direction?
No, it's not a unidirectional matter. It will be economic illogicality to make that argument. Because what precedes the other? The horse is in front of the cart.
Yes.
The erosion of the real value of the workers' pay has taken place. Inflation has gone. The depreciation of the naira has happened. And therefore, those are in front of the cart. The cart is the salary of the worker. And therefore, if the worker is to be able to even reproduce himself, that is, recreate the energy he expends on his work, he has to eat. He has to take himself to work. You need to make an adjustment now in his pay in order to make that possible. The other issues you raise are real, and nobody's paying turning a blind eye to that. We have engaged in campaigns. As a matter of fact, twice we have already had national rallies on the anti-corruption matter. We have raised issues about the way the economy is managed and what things need to be done. We have raised issues about the cost of governance, which is partly responsible for the collapse of the economy. So why addressing those matters? We cannot say that it is only when those matters are now resolved that you will keep the body and soul of the worker together. It is necessary first, even for the workers to do that struggle. They have to keep their body and soul together. And that is why the review that is demanded is urgent, is necessary, and has to happen.
Yeah, well, when there are people who say, look, yeah, the review makes sense, and then you need to ask about it, but is the NLC keeping in mind, too, that some of these state governments are not even able to pay what the NLC does not consider a living wage today? I mean, there are states that are owing
15 months, 13 months.
Salaries, left, right, center. And when you talk about the issues that the NLC has raised nationally, how are you handling the issue of governors who have gotten the bailout funds, ended up not spending it in taking care of workers of challenges? I mean, we've heard all sorts of allegations.
Yes.
In my state, for instance, you saw the broad headline on the Nation newspaper. I mean, it was all over. Okowa loses, bailout fund to mistress and all that. Although the government denied it, but these are the kinds of allegations that, coming out left, right, center, that governors are using bailout funds to do this type of things instead of paying workers' salary. Yes. How is NLC addressing that?
Yes. To start with, let me just one tiny correction. States that are unable. No state is unable. They are deliberately, and you have, the follow-up that you did has shown that. Because if there were bailouts that should be used, and some did not use it, and have even deployed it in some shady and may have lost it and all that, it shows that it is not the capacity. It is the decision deliberately and wrong priority setting that is at the root of the non-payment of those salaries. No state, if it sets its priorities right and manages its affairs properly, can say it cannot pay. And we have actually called that if there is any state that says it cannot pay, then it is an indication of a failed state, and the governor should resign. A governor who continues to take his salary that is set nationally and cannot pay 18,000 naira minimum wage has no business calling himself a governor. He should resign. As to what we have done, when the bailouts were released, actually just before the bailouts were released, the bailouts were in part the efforts that we made in engaging the federal government. And the first bailout was the outcome of such engagement. And so when it came, we approached the ICPC and said we have formed committees in every state, and we wanted ICPC to work with those committees.
Was it because you felt that the governors were going to be naughty with the bailout funds?
Yes, because we are not strangers in this place. We know what has happened in the past. We know when they collect the monthly allocations, what they do with it.
So you invited the
ICPC. And so we had a working relationship with ICPC.
To monitor the funds.
To monitor the funds. ICPC, I know, periodically issued some queries and some reports as to how in some states they were not properly utilized. We then expected that there would be government needs to follow up that released the bailout fund, ought to have been able to use the report of ICPC to follow up on some of those. But within the powers that we have, what we did was then to have a roadmap of state by state, and we went and engaged in a number of states. We went to Imo State. We occupied Owerri for some time. We went to Nasarawa State. We went to Oyo State. And there were various other states. And those things have continued. It's a struggle that continues. So for us, even when the Paris Club reform was going to be made, we again immediately wrote to all the our state councils that they must engage their governor so that these monies can be, properly utilized and arrears of salaries paid. So if we have governors who have come and have deliberately decided that they want to take the resources available and misapply them, rather than meet their genuine obligations, then it is part of the corruption. It is part of the rottenness.
Tomorrow, when your organs across the states and at the federal, you'll be meeting with those that matter, the governors, the president, and top officials. And you have the list of those that have not used this money properly. Are you petitioning or complaining to government formally that these specific states have corruptly spent or illegally spent this money designated for the workers in other areas?
Well,
is it part of what we see tomorrow?
What you will see tomorrow is those who are owing arrears of salaries. We will highlight them. And as for those who misapply their funds, the tricky thing is we do not have the investigative apparatus. And that's why I drew your attention to what we did from the beginning by bringing in the ICPC.
So why are they not helping you with the investigative side of it?
We expect that, government, if I, as a federal government, I release funds to states in order to support them to meet specific goals.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a responsibility to find out how it was used. And those that were not used correctly, I have a responsibility to call them to order. Those are not powers we have. We can only advocate that the person who has that power should utilize it and do the right thing. And those are the advocacy.
Because those monies have been collected in your name.
Okay, well, Dr. So we'd like to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And to wish you the best as you celebrate.
Yes, we wish them the best tomorrow.
As you celebrate tomorrow.
I hope we will see all of you tomorrow.
Yes, we are workers. We are workers.
So
we'll be there. And on Tuesday night, the Minister of Labor, Senator
and
Productivity, Dr. Chris Ngige, will be joining us to address some of the issues that
they are going to raise tomorrow.
This afternoon, and they will be raising tomorrow. So do keep a date with us. That's Tuesday night at 11 p.m. I'm Obiora Ilo from Abuja in Nigeria. Thanks for watching.
And I am Mahmoud Akuga. Thank you all so much for watching, and bye for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Your state branches, they know what the governors are doing.
No,
but
part of our
some
problem.
of them are already
From AIT Studios in Abuja, Nigeria, this is the O&M Sunday Show with Obiora Ilo and Mamode Akuga.